I'm honestly more concerned about what Bethany Funk has to say, but let's go ahead and see what Hippler's decision is regarding Dylan and her bushy eyebrow story. Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. Disclaimer. Everything stated in this video is my opinion and my opinion only, and just like everything else in these cases we discuss here on this channel, everything is alleged. So over the past few videos, we've been going over Judge Hippler's orders in the Idaho student murder case regarding all of the motions filed from both sides, the defense and the state. Right now, we have the order regarding bushy eyebrows being mentioned in court regarding the eyewitness testimony that's supposed to be coming from Dylan Mortensen. Now, we have a lot of issues with little Miss Dylan because not only is she so wishy-washy with what she claims to have seen and or not seen, the stories continue to change. Everything in this case has changed from day one to now. And what happens whenever things are the truth, whenever something is being told in its purest form of honesty? Nothing changes. It does not go up and down and fluctuate and have a bunch of details go in and out, fade, turn black and white to rainbow. It does not work that way. The truth always remains the same. And everything that we have gotten from this case has changed. Every single time we get a new piece of information, the timeline changes, the people involved changes, the stories about what actually happened and between who and with what ends up changing. Whiplash. It hurts. Now, when it comes to the bushy eyebrow phrasing itself, it's very confusing about where it actually came from and how honest it is to what was actually physically seen by Dylan in a way of a physical assailant. Now, what we've come to learn about Dylan's testimony is that the only constant, the only thing that never changes, is the fact that she claims that she doesn't know, that she hasn't an actual idea about what really happened and what she heard and what she saw because her mind was playing tricks on her, or she at least thought that maybe her mind was playing tricks on her because she was just so out of it, inebriated, intoxicated, otherwise out of her mind, that she just doesn't know what was reality, what was a dream, what was a hallucination. She has no idea. She has no clue. At least that's the story that she has said in all of her interviews. Now, it's gone from a guy dressed in all black wearing a mask to a firefighter type guy carrying something that was very vacuum like. Those are two completely different things. And it's very strange the way that it has actually evolved, especially with the new information that we are getting regarding dates of interviews, who she was interviewing with, the certain words and very specific verbiage that was being used by the interviewer in order to invoke certain things to be said and verified by the interviewee that may not have actually been true. Yeah, we've learned a lot, including the fact that Dylan has artwork all over her walls of eyes with poofy, puffy, prominent eyebrows. She also has a bunch of stick figures of humans pinned to boards with tacks, and she has white walls. And for some reason, she has a strange remembrance in her mind of the bushy eyebrow. One, not two like most humans have, but just one, not speaking to her or coming towards her, and that it was white. The person that she saw was white. She didn't know how the person was white, just that he was white. All of these things to me, on top of a brain that might be playing tricks on you, tell me that she was watching her walls while coming up with something in her mind to maybe justify what she was maybe hearing. Something about her story just doesn't sound right. And whenever you take all of the substances maybe involved and all of the alcohol they are claiming was involved, the stories and rumors about what actually goes on in and outside of the King Road residence, and a bunch of other things, you can only assume her mind was playing tricks on her for real, with her own artwork making up a figure in her mind. Hold on, guys. Before we get too far into this bushy eyebrow conversation, I have to introduce y'all to today's video sponsor, Aura. Now, if you've been with me for a while, you've heard me talk about Aura for a little over a year now. I've been using them to help protect my social security number, my property address, my email addresses, and pretty much anything and everything in between. They also offer a VPN service, they help you monitor your credit, and you can keep your children safe with the parental controls on the internet. It can take sometimes almost a year before a big company even allows their customers the privilege of knowing that their information has been compromised. That gives the bad guy a huge head start. Services like Aura will instantly notify you the second any of the information that you have them monitoring for you shows up on any of these dark web or nasty brokerage websites. They also will help you fight to get it removed. I personally had my social security number breached whenever AT&T had their huge data breach. I knew pretty much the second I signed up with Aura, but I didn't know until I signed up with Aura. It wouldn't be for another 3 months before I'd even get a letter in the mail letting me know what had happened. That's unacceptable. And besides keeping your information safe, they also try to keep your devices safe with their antivirus scanner. If you click on the link below, you can try this service for 2 weeks for free on me. Go to aura.com/Jules. That's aura.com/JULEZ. It will instantly start looking for your information in places it should not be. You can only protect yourself. You need to use the resources that you have at your disposal. Aura is a great one to have in your back pocket. I keep it in mind. Again, click the link below or go to aura.com/Jules to get a 2-week free trial. Come back and let me know how much of your information that you found out there. You're going to be unpleasantly surprised. Now back to the video. Not to say that obviously whatever happened didn't happen, because obviously it happened. We are here trying to figure out what happened to 4 lives that were lost in one of the biggest mysteries that most of us have ever come across. The story is not making any sense. And then whenever you top it with the fact that she herself went and found Bryan Kohberger's photo after his name was announced to the public that he was arrested for the murders, and she told the police officers that she didn't recognize him. She didn't recognize the voice that she was hearing. She's not recognizing the suspect. She's not recognizing or seeing anything of familiarity. Nothing is jogging a memory when she looks at his eyes, his eyebrows, his face that would have been showing through a mask. Nothing. That's pretty important. Okay, let's go ahead and just get right to the order. Introduction. DM, Dylan, a roommate of the victims in this case, was the sole eyewitness to the intruder believed to have carried out the homicides at 1122 King Road. So right there, are they automatically claiming that Bethany honestly didn't see a person? Because Bethany apparently has something to her knowledge, and only her knowledge alone can bring this out, that Bryan technically is innocent. They're claiming that whatever Bethany knows is exculpatory to Bryan Kohberger. But this judge has a way of saying things to where he's almost playing prosecutor by putting things in there that we technically haven't had verified or even heard yet. So let's just take everything that, sadly, the judge says with a ginormous grain of salt until we get to trial, because I don't trust this guy. He's not very good at his job. I'm just going to say that. During her interviews with law enforcement and at the preliminary hearing in this matter, Dylan described the intruder as having, actually it says at having, but it should say as having, bushy eyebrows. Defendant moves in limine to exclude any evidence at trial referencing bushy eyebrows, arguing Dylan's description is unreliable and therefore irrelevant and are barred by IRE 403. Yeah, she was completely out of her mind by her own admission. She literally states, I think my brain was playing tricks on me. I don't know if it was a dream or reality. Damn right it's not reliable. The state responds that Dylan's description is based on her personal knowledge, is relevant, and there is no basis for exclusion. So just because somebody claims that that's what they experienced doesn't mean that that experience actually happened. So I disagree. To say that it was her personal knowledge based on her experience, technically, isn't necessarily true. It could literally be being made up. And again, by her own admission, her brain could have been creating it. She doesn't know. Oral argument on the motion was held on April 9th, 2025, after which the court took the matter under advisement. The court concludes that Dylan's description of the suspect's eyebrows is admissible, which is so stupid, especially given the fact that there's artwork in her room that depicts exactly the way that she's describing this person. That should matter. The power of suggestion is so freaking strong. The fact that they're not paying any attention to that is pretty gross. Standard. The question of whether evidence is relevant, one of law, while the decision to admit relevant evidence is discretionary. And then it cites State versus Schutz from 2006. On discretionary matters, the trial court must 1. Correctly perceive the issue as one of discretion. 2. Act within the outer boundaries of its discretion. 3. Act consistently with the legal standards applicable to the specific choices available to it. And 4. Reach its decision by the exercise of reasoning. Facts. On November 13th, 2022, sometime before 4:19 a.m., Dylan observed a person inside her residence, which she shared with her 4 roommates at 1122 King Road. And then it states that there is an exhibit that shows Dylan's phone records. We've seen a lot of stuff, but we haven't seen everything. Dylan placed several phone calls and sent several text messages to her roommates. The only roommate who responded was Bethany, who resided in a downstairs bedroom. They had 2 short phone conversations and exchanged text. Within those phone calls and text messages, Dylan relayed to Bethany she saw a person in the residence wearing black, and he had on a ski mask that covered his forehead and mouth. And they also were very adamant that both of them were freaking out about something, yet neither one of them fled nor called 911. Very strange. That same day at approximately 11:56 a.m., so he's just going to jump and just skip over all of the insanity? Holy shit. Okay. That day at approximately 11:56 a.m., a 911 call was placed from 1122 King Road for a reported unresponsive female, and we're not going to get into all of the bullshit around that right now. Moscow Police Department responded to the scene, and Officer Mitch Nunez took a statement from Dylan. She told Officer Nunez she saw a male, not insanely tall, wearing all black, and a mask that was just covering his forehead and mouth. It says something about an exhibit entitled D8-A, and then it also has a footnote that states that these were among those filed on November 26th of 2024 in support of defendant's motion for a Franks hearing and relied upon by the parties for this motion, so it's older exhibits. Later, Dylan repeated the description. He was a little bit taller than me. I couldn't really see much of him, and I'm almost positive he was wearing a full black outfit, and he had this mask that was just over his forehead and over his mouth. Bryan Kohberger has a very prominent brow, deep-set eye sockets, and a pretty big nose, bigger than average. So if that kind of very prominent features are sticking out of somebody's face right at you in the middle of a sea of black, and you see that face later on, doesn't trigger your brain, that's because it's not the same person, which we've pretty much already established here. Dylan gave the description a 3rd time, repeating he had a mask, he was an inch or 2 taller than her, and he was basketball player kind of skinny, in a voice she did not recognize. Dylan also told Detective Nunez she was kind of in and out of it because she was so scared, and I was really tired. She did not mention anything during that interview about the intruder's eyebrows. Exactly. So that's 3 interviews, and she doesn't say a single word? Doesn't say a single word. Then how important is that to the description? Just as unimportant as that front license plate on that car that no one gave 2 shits about until they had Bryan's name? Yeah. At approximately 1:47 p.m. that same day, Dylan was interviewed at the Moscow Police Department by Detective Lawrence Mowry. During this interview, Dylan reported she saw a white male she did not know, maybe my height, a few inches taller, skinny, athletic built, wearing all black, wearing this mask that just covers his forehead and here. Regarding his height, she reported, I'm 5'10", so he's probably around 6 foot. She responded no when asked if she saw what color his eyebrows were, and added, I don't remember what his eyes looked like either, but she saw his eyes, and he was definitely a white guy. Again, she mentioned she was in and out of it because she was tired and explained everything was kind of blurry. Like, I don't fully remember it, I would say. I really hope they play her interviews at the trial. Even if it's just the audio, I want to hear it. 4 days later, Dylan was interviewed by Idaho State Police Detective Victoria, I call this person Goop, and MPD Captain Dustin Blaker. Dylan gave a detailed recounting of what she did on Saturday, November 12th, 2022, until she went to bed at approximately 3:20 a.m. on Sunday. That's a freaking lie. She was adding a contact to her phone at 3:51 a.m. She was not asleep at approximately 3:20. He knows this. It's in the records we've already seen. She stated that sometime between 4 a.m. and 4:20 a.m., she woke up and heard a male's voice that she did not recognize say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." So again, she's adding a phone contact to her phone at 3:51 in the morning. And then just 9 minutes later, at 4 o'clock in the morning, after the house has already been disturbed yet again by a DoorDash being delivered at 3:59 in the morning, so just a mere 8 minutes after Dylan adds a phone contact, we're supposed to believe that she's so out of it asleep that she doesn't know what's happening. Okay, but never mind the fact that we also recently found out that she was hearing singing and music as this stuff was happening. What are they actually trying to do here? Because it's just not going to work. And the fact this judge is not being honest and skipping over so much when it comes to his orders is pretty gross too. It's like he's purposely excluding things, to follow that narrative. She said at the time she was out of it and probably still tipsy, and I believe I was also very drunk. Dylan opened her door and saw someone explaining. And I don't know how I knew it was someone because from my mind, it's like I was almost wearing these like blurry glasses. Like it's fuzzy and cloudy, but it was like a figure of someone wearing all black. And it was like they had a ski mask that was covering their forehead and their chin and mouth. But I could see all I remember was seeing their eyebrows. And I don't remember what their eyes looked like, but I remember their eyebrows. I don't remember the color the eyebrows were. I just remember like bushy eyebrows. That's all I could think about. Now remember, we also saw that Xana was wearing all black in that infamous photo of all of them hanging out together before they dispersed for the night. And that in the text messages, we saw that Bethany also mentions to Dylan that Xana was wearing all black. So there's a possibility that the person that Dylan saw could have been Xana. If her eyes were so blurry and fuzzy and she couldn't really figure out what she was seeing, well, Xana's a white girl. She would have looked white. And if maybe her hair was in her face, maybe it would have looked more like she had a mask on that was covering a portion of her face. Or if it was dark, and dare to say if there was red stuff on Xana's face, maybe covering portions of her skin in the dark, that maybe it would look sort of like a mask. I mean, that's a big possibility here. But we've also heard other things. Again, the singing, the music, that for a second we were told that she thought maybe it was one of Ethan and Xana's friends leaving for the night. I mean, there's been all kinds of things. Rummaging upstairs, thinking people were looking for something. There's been so much. I cannot wait until we get down to some actual facts here. Dylan described the male as skinny tone, that basketball kind of type. Dylan stated she was 5 foot 10 inches tall, so she thought the male was around 5 foot 10 and then 6 foot, somewhere around there. Dylan stated the male was approximately 3 feet from where she was standing, but added that could be off because obviously, probably still a little bit drunk. I just woke up. I don't remember fully. But again, she was adding a contact to her phone at 3:51 in the morning. How passed out are you? 9 minutes later, a DoorDash just got delivered. So either a doorbell was rang or there was a knock on one of the doors, regardless of which one. There was something. There was a disturbance. There were lights in the window from the car pulling in. You are not so dead set out of it in 8-9 minutes that you don't know what the frick is happening. Especially if you were just coherent enough to add a contact to your phone while being apparently so intoxicated that you're seeing all kind of fuzzy. Like, you can't have it both ways here. It's either one way or the other. She reiterated, I know he looked at me because I could see his eyebrows. I think I just saw one eyebrow. I don't know why or how. Well, because a lot of her artwork was a singular eye with a very prominent eyebrow. Hence why, with her claiming that she was so out of it that she thought her mind was playing tricks on her, that it looked like she was wearing blurry, fuzzy type glasses and she couldn't really see straight in front of her, it's not too far-fetched to believe that she was looking at her walls and allowing her mind to just do its thing. Dylan then recounted calling and texting her roommate Bethany that there was someone in the house wearing all black and a ski mask. Dylan conveyed to the interviewers that she did not know for sure if it fully happened. So she can't even really say if she actually did see somebody walking around. She doesn't know if that was a figment of her imagination or not. I don't know if my mind's like making up stuff. It just doesn't make sense to me, and I don't know how to fully explain it, I guess. Detective Goop explained to Dylan that the most important thing was to tell only things she knew were true, and Dylan agreed. Dylan also agreed that she was traumatized and it could affect her memory. How? Maybe in the aftermath of finally learning what happened, but whenever the 911 call is about somebody who you think is passed out from drinking too much the night before, obviously there wasn't too much going on for your brain to really register too much of an emergency from according, to the stupid card that these girls are trying to play here. But still, there was enough during the time all this was going on for you to both be freaked out, scared, wanting to not be alone and go downstairs so that you were in the same room together. But still, again, no one left, fearing for their lives, even though they're claiming they're freaking out and seeing somebody walking around in a mask in their house, and no one's calling the cops. Two different people, two different cell phones, multiple different electronic devices that are logged into different social medias, different outlets, and different ways to contact people for help, and nobody did anything. Neither one of them. That's the crazy part. This isn't just one person. These are two people that were brought up in two different households and have different ways embedded into them about how to handle things. And they both just collectively decided to huddle together in the same room and not call the cops. It's just insane to me. Detective Goop also asked Dylan if she suffered from anxiety. Dylan responded that she did and added that she had a lot of lucid dreams of being like kidnapped or chased. She also indicated she would watch Criminal Minds and fall asleep to crime podcast. Detective Goop and Captain Blaker then sought to reconfirm the facts from Dylan's memory. Dylan reiterated that she saw a male figure in the hallway approximately 3 feet from her. He was holding something. He was wearing all black clothes. His forehead was covered. He was wearing a mask. She remembered his eyebrows. Captain Blaker asked what was covering his face, and Dylan stated, I don't know, weird looking ski mask. It wasn't like a regular ski mask with like eyes and, because I saw his eyebrows and I think I saw his nose and like part of his face, but I don't know. She stated she could not see the male's mouth and she did not remember if she saw his nose, but confirmed, I know I saw eyebrows and I don't remember his eyes. I just feel like I can see eyebrows, but I mean, that could be it. I mean, that would make sense why the forehead was covered and this part of his face was covered. Now, what's crazy to me, too, is that she has the type of mask that they're claiming she says he had on that day, the balaclava mask or however the frick you say it. So for her to be like, it's not a regular ski mask, but not know what it's called tells me that it wasn't that kind of mask because we've seen photos of her in a pink one. So she knows what the frick it is. And if she's not sitting here saying, it's shaped like this pink one I have back in my room, then obviously that's not the same kind. So I don't know why they're trying to go off of that, but I don't feel like that's the kind of mask this person was wearing. If this was a person actually wearing something on their face, it definitely wasn't what they're claiming it was. I have my own ideas. I'll put it out there eventually. The investigators inquired if Dylan could provide a composite for an artist, but she said she cannot. Again, she reiterated she did not remember what his eyes looked like. I don't remember what his nose looked like. I just remember eyebrows. I don't know exactly what the eyebrows looked like at all, really. I just remember thinking, like, eyebrows. Yeah, bushy. But that's all. Like, I don't remember the shape. I don't remember, like, the color. I just remember, like, bushy eyebrows. That's the only thing I can remember. Because that's plastered all over your walls. Of course it is. On November 13th and November 19th, 2022, law enforcement took photos of Dylan's bedroom. On the wall were many magazine photos and drawn pictures pinned to corkboards. The drawings were of human faces with an emphasis on eyes and eyebrows. Some of the eyebrows are heavy. Heavy. That's not how they were worded, but okay. On December 1st, 2022, 18 days after her first interview, Dylan was interviewed by forensic interviewer Aaron Williamson. Dylan gave a detailed accounting of her day on Saturday, November 12th, 2022, until she went to bed on Sunday, November 13th of 2022. Dylan reported she heard a man's voice and it wasn't Ethan's. It was like, it's okay, I'm going to help you. Dylan stated she saw all black figure about my height, maybe a few inches taller, skinny build, wearing a mask. Dylan again stated, I saw I don't remember if it was just like one eyebrow or two, but it was just like this bushy eyebrow. She described texting Bethany about a guy in all black and described the ski mask, stating, I couldn't see any of his hair, but I remember just like seeing like it was like almost rectangular, like not the circle ones. It was rectangular because I remember seeing like just like I don't know how to explain it. Just seeing like this, maybe I'd be able to see like a cross, but I don't remember seeing his eyes. But I feel like his eyes were there. I could just see like an eyebrow. I feel like that's how I know he saw me, because I could see his eyebrow. Like if I can see his eyebrow, he can see me. She reiterated. From what I remember, I think he was just like walking past that little wall and going towards the kitchen. I don't know. Like I just remember seeing an eyebrow. I don't know why I just see one. It was just like one bushy eyebrow. I don't remember the color, like the full shape. I just remember it being bushy. Now, this portion right here, maybe I'd be able to see like a cross. I don't know if they mean across, like across the way, like across from like where the person's standing to where she is. If she's saying maybe I can see like across the way, or if she means across, like across on the person's face. Now, that's why I don't think the mask is what they're trying to say that it is, because there are masks out there for certain things where they have like a more T shape on the face, to where there's more like a line that comes down over the nose, down the mouth area, and then the like eye part is open and it looks sort of like a T, like sort of like a cross. But then again, it could also have meant that there was a cross physically on the person's face somewhere, maybe around their eye area where, you know, she was able to see maybe what was on the person's face, or maybe on the mask itself. But to me, it's just not a mask that she's familiar with, which means it can't be the balaclava or whatever the frick they're trying to say it was. And another thing, going back to the possibility that what she saw here could have been Xana, okay? Xana wearing all black, the DoorDash order, them trying to claim that the DoorDash order is some sort of verification for Xana, even though the order came from Ethan's phone. What if what Dylan is seeing, because she's so out of her freaking mind, is actually Xana in all black walking towards the back sliding glass door to get the DoorDash order? If the DoorDash was actually delivered to the back slider, because that's a big possibility, that's a possibility, because what if what she saw in the person's hand being held was the DoorDash food? I don't know. I'm just really sick and tired of not knowing. Dylan also drew the mask for the interviewer. While drawing, she gave a consistent description of the mask and noted the eyebrows. I don't remember if I saw one or two. Like it was just weird. Dylan explained that she had scary lucid dreams, but she would always know she was dreaming. When she saw the intruder, however, she did not fully understand whether it was a dream or not. So any other time, she's very aware. Just one time. It's just the one time that she just wasn't sure. Okay. She also indicated that when she first saw the intruder, she thought he might be a fireman, which is just wild in itself. On December 29th, 2022, defendant was arrested in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. The following day, on December 30th, 2022, 47 days after her first interview, Dylan was interviewed by Idaho State Police detectives. They asked Dylan whether she had seen a picture of defendant. She stated she had seen the mugshot but had no clue whether defendant was the person she saw in her house. She explained. From what I remember, I just remember seeing this figure that was like, not fat, obviously, but more like the skinnier tone build and some mask on. I don't know what the mask exactly was. And again, if it was like the pink one that we've seen her wearing, it would match the description that the cops are trying to tell us the mask is, that they're claiming that Bryan bought or whatever. And that's just not it. Okay. It's just not that kind of mask. But when I thought about it, it was just like covering here and here. I don't know if it was covering his mouth, his nose, or below his mouth and nose. I just remember knowing that he was white, but I don't know how he was white. I just knew he was. And people will leave comments like, where do you people make this stuff up from? What do you mean she thought that he was white, but she didn't know how he was white? And I'm like, it's in the documents. I know it sounds absolutely ludicrous and like I'm pulling stuff out of my ass, but it's not. It's true factual facts. Sad. And this knowing there's like, I knew he had looked at me because of the bushy eyebrow. That's all I remember. But I have no idea what he looked like. I don't like, when I looked at his picture, nothing came back to me at all. So like, I don't know. I feel like if I saw that, my mind would be like, oh yeah, that's him. But it just, I don't remember it all. So if they try to come back and try to say later on that all of a sudden Dylan had some sort of epiphany and is like, oh my God, yeah, that's him. Nah, I don't believe you at all. When asked whether she told Bethany the male had a big nose, Dylan stated, "All I remember, but I don't remember a big nose at all, like at all. That's like, all I remember is like some bushy eyebrow in all black and some sort of mask, but it wasn't like one of those circle ski masks. That's all I remember." And you would remember that nose. Sorry, not sorry about it, okay? You would remember seeing that nose. And if she doesn't remember that kind of nose whatsoever, then it wasn't Bryan. I mean, come on. On May 15th, 2023, 183 days after Dylan's first interview, Dylan testified at the grand jury proceeding for the above titled matter. Regarding November 13th of 2022, Dylan testified she woke up around 4 a.m. to noises, but you were awake at 3:51 putting a contact in your phone just 9 minutes before that. What do you mean you woke up to noises? That's not true. She testified she opened her door and heard a man's voice say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you," and I didn't know who the man's voice was. Dylan testified she opened her door again and saw a figure in all black, which I believe was a person. I knew the person was white. I don't know how, but I just knew. Knew it was male. I think I knew that because of the voice. The person was around my height or a few inches taller, and then I knew this build wasn't like scrawny, and he wasn't fat, so I figured it was like a basketball toned, lean build. Regarding what the person was wearing, Dylan testified, there was like, from what I think I remember, it was like a black mask, almost like a ski mask, but not. It just like covered the head and then maybe up to the mouth, maybe more. I can't remember if it covered just the chin, the mouth, or the nose, or lower. She said his clothing was all black. What do you mean she said his clothing was all black? I'm sorry? So he's putting it in quotations right here, but then also saying she said his clothing was all black as if Dylan is saying the words. She said his clothing was all black. See, he should have put the ending quotation here behind lower and then left this as a statement of fact of what he is claiming that she said. Because the way that he put this makes it sound as if someone else told Dylan that the person was wearing all black. See what I mean? They need to be more careful. Dylan also testified, well, the thing I can really remember was something about a bushy eyebrow. Just one. Again, just one. I don't remember seeing anything else, just something about a bushy eyebrow. That's insane to me. Analysis. Dylan's testimony satisfies IRE 601 and IRE 602. Sure. Defendant first suggests that Dylan is not competent and or lacks personal knowledge to testify about bushy eyebrows because her testimony is not reliable under the Mason-Biggers balancing test, a test that is applied when determining whether a witness identification is reliable or whether it was the product of police suggestiveness. There's a lot in here that he did not put in here that we've already seen that shows there was a lot of suggestion. Defendant points out that Dylan's opportunity to see the intruder in her home was seconds at most. Her attention was influenced by sleepiness and alcohol, and she constantly questioned what she saw, which is true. She says it in her own freaking words that she doesn't know if her brain was playing tricks on her or not. That normally she can tell if she's lucid dreaming or if it's real, but for some reason, just this one time, it was really difficult for her to be able to tell the difference all of a sudden. Defendant argues Dylan's description of the physical characteristics of the intruder were general in nature and could fit millions of individuals. It pretty much could fit almost every single person that we saw in the band-filled body cam. It pretty much is the description of every frat guy in that entire neighborhood. What you mean? Defendant also notes that while he does not have bushy eyebrows, the artwork on her wall displays individuals with prominent eyebrows. It does. It does. As the state notes, however, the Mason-Biggers test does not apply here because Dylan did not make an identification of defendant and her descriptions were not the result of the use of law enforcement identification techniques. In fact, the sole instance when Dylan was asked to identify defendant was when she was shown his mugshot after his arrest. She responded she had no clue whether it was the person she saw. Correction, which I shouldn't even be having to do this. He literally just put in this exact order that Dylan went herself to go and find Bryan's mugshot and then told the police she went and looked herself and didn't recognize the guy. He just put it in here as if someone physically showed Dylan a picture of Bryan and she was like, "Oh, I don't recognize him." And that's not how it happened. When she was shown his mugshot after his arrest, that's a misleading statement to what actually happened. Not to be deterred, defendant alternatively argues that the court should find Dylan unreliable based on scientific studies that explain the fragility and inaccuracy of memory. The court finds no basis to do so, and there's a footnote that says, even if the court were inclined to consider defendant's arguments about why science supports a finding of unreliability, the application of scientific principles to Dylan's reported memory for purposes of determining reliability is squarely within the realm of an expert. All defendant has presented to the court, however, are citations of scientific articles. This is not an appropriate substitute for expert testimony. Well, they probably should have had somebody come in that could actually talk about that kind of stuff. But regardless, just based off of what she has said herself, it shouldn't be admissible. She's not credible at all. As a general matter, every person is competent to be a witness. IRE 601. Incompetency, which is determined by the court, applies to persons whom the court finds are incapable of receiving just impressions of the facts about which they are examined or of relating them accurately. Additionally, a witness may testify to a matter only if evidence is introduced sufficient to support a finding that the witness has personal knowledge of the matter. Dylan was a direct witness in this case. No, if she herself is stating that she doesn't know with what she saw was real or not, how is she a direct witness? She is not even convinced herself that what she saw was real. That doesn't make any sense. As the factual recitation sets forth in detail, Dylan's account of what she saw and the physical characteristics of the intruder were remarkably consistent throughout all 5 interviews and her grand jury testimony. While she did not mention his eyebrows in her initial interviews, thank you. She therefore identified the bushy eyebrows. You mean brow, singular? You've got your, quantities all kinds of mixed up there on multiple occasions as something that firmly stuck out in her mind. Although she might have been intoxicated or tired or questioned her memory, the consistency of her descriptions suggest a high degree of reliability. Okay. While defendant may cross-examine Dylan about his concerns with her memory, his challenges to her competency and personal knowledge as a basis for exclusion are unfounded. There is no basis under IRE 403 to exclude Dylan's testimony. Defendant next asserts Dylan's testimony about bushy eyebrows must be excluded under IRE 403, which permits exclusion of relevant evidence if its probative value is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice, confusion of the issues, or misleading the jury, or by considerations of undue delay, waste of time, or needless presentation of cumulative evidence. Specifically, defendant points out Dylan could not provide enough details about the intruder to provide a description to a composite artist. He asserts that to allow her to testify about bushy eyebrows would confuse the issues and result in unfair prejudice because of the danger the jury will believe he is guilty due to his eyebrows. However, Dylan's testimony about bushy eyebrows is highly relevant in this case. What? What? Dylan is the only eyewitness to the intruder responsible for the homicides. It is the jury's task to determine whether defendant is that person. Again, all black, something maybe or maybe not on their face, white person, something being held in their hands. This literally could have been Xana walking back from getting the DoorDash order. It really could have been. Further, there is nothing confusing about her testimony. Her descriptions of the bushy eyebrows have been consistent and clear. While she could not provide enough details for a composite sketch, it is unsurprising, given her observation that the intruder was wearing a mask on his face. Moreover, while this description might or might not implicate defendant, it will not result in unfair prejudice. Unfair prejudice arises only when the evidence has an undue tendency to suggest a decision on an improper basis and appeals to the jurors' sympathies, arouses their sense of horror, provokes their instinct to punish, or otherwise causes a jury to base its decision on something other than the established propositions in the case. And then he cites State versus Russo from 2014. Dylan's description of the intruder having bushy eyebrows will not reasonably compel a jury to find defendant guilty simply because he may have similar eyebrows. Really? Because Richard Allen was literally found guilty of killing Abby and Libby because his voice kind of sort of sounds like Bridge Guy. Literally, that's it. There is a large gulf between a finding that a witness is not competent to testify about what they personally witnessed and simply allowing impeachment by vigorous cross-examination. This is a matter for cross-examination by defendant, and any concerns with Dylan's ability to perceive and remember what she claims she saw may be tested in that manner. Basically, he's telling Ann Taylor, if you want to tear her apart, go ahead and do it, but I'm allowing the testimony in, which I honestly am not too mad about. I want to hear exactly what lie is going to be told out of her face on the stand. There's already been way too many discrepancies. Based on the foregoing, defendant's motion in limine regarding witness identification by bushy eyebrows is denied. But it's not witness identification, honestly, because again, Dylan's never claimed to have pointed out Bryan Kohberger in any way, shape, or form. And what's going to matter is her literally stating, I don't recognize him. That's not the face I saw that night. No, I don't recognize his eyes. No, I don't recognize his nose. No, the portion of his face that I do see does not look familiar to me. No, it does not trigger a memory. All of that is extremely important. So no, I didn't want Dylan's testimony to be excluded. No. I want them front and center. I want her and Bethany front and center. But I want it to be truthful. And that's where we are probably going to have a problem. But again, that's just my opinion. And now we know Judge Hippler's opinion. Now I want to know you guys' opinion down in the comments. How are you feeling so far about the way that these orders are being ruled upon? Let me know. If you like the way that I present this information and give my opinion, please don't forget to leave a like on the way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed already. And please don't forget to make sure that that notification bell is set to all so you don't miss any of my rants, reviews, reactions, updates, or deep dives. See y'all.